Okay. Hey, Stephen. How's it going?
Hey,
Cool.
what's up?
Hey, everyone. I know we're running a wee bit late, and I haven't edited this as well, but yeah, we're live, and I think we can kick off. Yeah, pretty much. Cool. I think we need to probably go through the disclaimers again. So let me just read it from the YouTube one. I know we got our lawyer just to kind of clean up some of those disclaimers so that they look pretty good. So let's have a quick read on what that says. But basically, like summary is it's not financial advice. So we'll talk through things here. We'll go through things, but like really, it's not financial advice. What we're showing you here is more for educational purposes and entertainment. We don't want, yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So I guess in terms of like, I ran like a Twitter poll for this, and like it was like crab mass, dark forest, and like wrap tokens. Weirdly enough, and limit orders. And a lot of the feedback was that like, well, dark forest clearly won, and then let me actually go have a look. I might just share
If
my.
we want to dive into Dark Forest, I can be the dummy because I started looking at it a little bit. Like, if you know a lot about it, I can ask a lot of questions along the way. Should we
Like
just
let's dive
start?
in. I mean, I like I'll be honest. Like I'm not as nearly as good as I should be. So let's have a look at. Don't even know the URL.
Yeah, let me pull.
I think it's on. I normally just put it on. Oh no, I've got it saved. Do I? I should have. So can everyone see my screen? I mean, I know there's.
Yeah, I think we can see it.
I'm probably gonna do rather just a browser, so I don't have that like crazy. There we go. Okay.
Internet mirror.
So if we look here, it should be on Patrick's. So the interesting thing about this is everyone's running out of money. So it's actually like I spoke to yeah, here it is, yeah. So it's quite interesting. What's happened with Dark Forest is because so many people are using it, they're running out of the WGM token. And what that then means is now because WAGMI doesn't really have a DEX that's fully deployed. Well, I know they do and they don't, right? So they've got the OG guys. So the OG guys with the meme coin and their DEX, that's kind of like, I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of like it's Pangolin's friends. So they do that like with us. But we're actually, if you actually look, what we're going to do is if you look at the new Pangolin UI, we're gonna embed WAGMI in here. So this Avalanche button, you'll be able to click that. It'll come up with a network selection. You'll be able to switch to WAGMI, and then all of the functionality. Obviously, you're not going to be able to buy and a few things, but all this functionality will be available for WAGMI. So then, what we're going to do is we're going to reach out to Patrick, and we're going to say because he owns the total supply of WAGMI, right? So we're going to reach out to him and ask him if he wants to become a liquidity provider. And then from there, you'll be able to trade WAGMI directly through the swap interface, right? So let's enter. Now I'm going to explain this, but I'm terrible at this, right? So like just bear with me if I butcher it.
Wait, just like, okay, so I'll ask some questions to start too. So
Cool.
one of the things that seems really interesting from the surface level about Dark Forest is that it's all about zero knowledge proofs. You're an expert on privacy. Are there a couple of words you want to share about how that all works?
Definitely. So first of all, you got to understand zero knowledge is a branch of cryptography. Probably, like in my opinion, like zero knowledge is going to eat the world. Like I tell people this, and I think like people are probably sick of me saying this, but zero knowledge, like when a new technology comes, it's very new, right? Like, and it's very immature. Zero knowledge in 4 years' time is going to be the hottest thing. And everyone's going to go, oh, what is this zero knowledge thing, And it's going to, every application will start implementing it. But at the moment, it's still very raw, very young. There's still a lot of academia that's doing a lot of kind of stuff in it. And there's kind of two parts of zero knowledge that, like I explained to kind of people that aren't really deep in the space. There's starks and snarks. So snarks were like the first iteration, and then starks were like the improvement upon that. So zero knowledge, because it's computationally very intensive, it's always been very slow. You look at Sherpa, you look at Tornado, you look at all of those, right? Like when you actually do something, it takes quite a while, especially like for our society, which is very immediate, right? But Starks have greatly improved the speed. So that's the next iteration. So Kevin, if I look at this Twitter over here, Kevin saying it's Snark. I actually thought Dark Forest was on Starks. I know they do have a wiki.
So I'm going to keep asking more questions too, to like program in some more the building blocks here for listeners too, right? So like if like snarks and starks are these like fundamental like evolutions in how privacy infrastructure works, I think a lot of our audience might be familiar with subnets too, but I wanted to sort of program that into the conversation as well. So like when I think about subnets, I basically think about the ability for people to create their own blockchain on Avalanche and leverage the same validators. So, but at the same time to iterate on consensus methods and on the entire life cycle of a network. So this is great for eliminating like gas costs or making it really specific to a certain use case, like something with zero knowledge proofs, which might have some different complexities to it. How do you think about like Avalanche subnets and then snarks?
Yeah, that's a great question. I just want to preface this. I'm not like an expert of this. Like at Sherpa, like Tyler, shout out to Tyler and Anno. Like those dudes are absolute heroes in terms of the stuff. So
like, for like everyone, first of all, for you, Justin, I think you are an expert, but this is such a nascent field that we're all on the bleeding edge here. So I think that's what Degen Hour is all about. It's a little bit of speculation.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see. So in Ethereum, with a lot of L2s, they talk about ZK rollups, right? So this is something, that I think subnets are going to have a really interesting journey. So now you've got a subnet. Now you've got, let's call, Avalanche C chain your mainnet, as it were, right? So now you've got a few problems with that. So the subnet needs to communicate with the C chain. So it needs to communicate balances potentially. And it needs to be able to transfer funds across. So in Ethereum, they use things called like ZK rollups, which then takes the state from one blockchain, an L2 or like a side chain, whatever your terminology is, and it then pushes it back to Ethereum. So let's talk about like Polygon, right? So Polygon, I think it takes like a week for state to sync or something. I don't know exactly.
My favorite like working analogy, and I wonder if you like this or not. Maybe there's some parts of the analogy that break down when you continue too far with it. But I basically always thought of before I even aped into Avalanche, like there was these like layer 2s that were being talked about with like Arbitrum and Optimism. And I think that there's still a ton of potential there too. But it was like, if Ethereum was this like theme park, there was like really, really long lines, and all of a sudden people were paying exorbitant amounts for tickets, right? So it was pricing out everyone. It also didn't have some of the speed that Avalanche has. The layer 2s were kind of like, there were like new theme parks opening, and all of a sudden the square footage of the theme park was getting way bigger. We could accommodate a lot more than like this 10 transactions a second on Ethereum. But then the question is like, how does that actually work, and how does it? Because it all is like, with layer 2s, it was all about the transactions were like, these layer 2s were actually benefiting from Ethereum's security system. So the idea was, you kind of need to like find a way to fit a whole train full of transactions into just one seat. And I think that's kind of what's happening with these like roll up technologies.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to know which is the most elegant design. I mean, so with Avalanche, you can implement your own security, right? So they've, the way that they've designed subnets is it's kind of like, you has a blank slate, like if you want permission, you can do that. If you want permissionless, you can do that. They've kind of given opened the design space rather than restricted the design space like some of these others. I think with that become like, I mean, that's both a positive and it could be construed as a negative because like, yeah, it can result in like mess, right? You know, like I always look at like technical debt, and I think that's where we're gonna see some interesting things. Like I often look at like how, like how the kind of, you know, bridge tokens came in, and it was great because it allowed the ecosystem to really kind of take advantage of a raging bull. But then what happened was it caused this like kind of fragmentation and this technical debt. So moving away from USDCE and USDTE to native, it was definitely the right decision from Ava Labs to then do it. But now we're in this weird, and I think we're going to get that same situation with subnets. So what's going to happen is people are going to rush into it.
Yeah, interesting. Because like the subnets themselves can be like, you know, different instances of those contracts. Just like for listeners, I guess like some background here. Maybe we can just review a tiny bit before we skip over the topic and continue with the fun stuff. But like there's like, you know, when the first Avalanche Ethereum bridge came into existence and you might have moved over some of your USDC, that was technically its own smart contract. But then like when the new bridge from Avalanche that we're all so familiar with today, the like, you know, good bridge or, you know, great bridge, like there's a new contract for those USDC tokens technically. So, you know, while they're both equal to $1, it's kind of a separate thing. And now there's a native deployment of USDC. Same problem with Tether. There's 3 versions of these tokens, and that's almost like, you know, it's a big problem for the system as a whole. So I think what Justin's talking about now is when you have every game can make their own subnet, have their totally own blockchain, and that can communicate with the C chain that we use today, know and love. Will that create like a whole new exponential fragmentation problem?
Yeah. So this is when we often talk about like atomic swaps, and it becomes very valid with bridges too, right? Because so an atomic swap theoretically would take something from one subnet. Let's say you got your Krabada token, right? So let's say when Krabada launched their subnet, they're going to run into this issue, right? They're going to launch like their CRA, and they're going to release, you know, Treasure Under the Sea, their TUS token. But now, so they've got a few things that are they going to like mint on that subnet and burn, or are they going to take their existing supply that's on the C chain and bridge it over? So then there's like a whole bunch of weird characteristics that occur, right? So arbitrage, let's say like Krabada's got crazy traffic, right? So let's say now they're on a subnet and some market condition happens, right? Like a black swan event, as it were. The game crashes, the token price goes down, right? Now there's tokens on both the C chain and the subnet. So that's not going to happen immediately. If the price crashes on the subnet or it goes mental on, like it goes really high on the subnet, the C chain is not going to automatically know about that. So the only way that people can then theoretically keep those prices in check is if people bridge across. But that's obviously there's latency of bridges, right? So like you got to think like even Axelar, if you've used Axelar, if you use AB bridge, you've used any bridge, it's not immediate, right? You got to wait. So like let's say for example you got like you're a whale and you got $1 million on the subnet, and you have an event that causes massive price volatility, you can't actually exit. You know, you might have like 10 seconds to exit via a bridge. By that time, someone else might have taken all of those profits and collapsed it. This is the big worry, like against like cross-chain stablecoins. So atomic swaps then theoretically means you don't have a bridge because the subnet talks directly to the other subnet, which is actually, if you think about Avalanche, the primary subnet is the P, the C, and the X chain together. So most people think the C chain is a subnet. It's not. It's actually the collection of those chains. So you got a subnet, and that consists of different blockchains. So the C is a blockchain, the X is a blockchain, and the P is a blockchain. The P is a platform chain, which theoretically would allow things like setting up parameters around staking, validation, whitelisting, all that funky goodness. So, you know, atomic swaps are super important. I mean, you don't have to have
atomic talk more about atomic swaps. I'd love to expand on the topic. Let's double click on it. The idea of atomic swaps. so I think we all understand that, like, USDC or AVAX or ETH or Luna, these like tokens can all be bridged. They come from different places more and more. If like the bridge breaks, or if it's down for a little bit or under construction or something, the price can be higher or lower on one side of the bridge, and like once traffic opens up, that'll solve itself. But there's some that's not ideal for market conditions. With atomic swaps, it's just like a fundamentally different way of doing things, where like maybe people have to rely on like Oracle technologies. Would you want to expand on atomic swaps, or does it work in a similar way?
Well, it's different, right? So so the way that Ava Labs, I don't think this technology is locked down, but the way that they would do it, from my understanding, and again, it's a moving target, so I may have misunderstood certain nuances. But the way that atomic swaps work is it goes through the P chain. So there's almost like a synchronization, like a state synchronization across all the subnets. So
I kind of picture subnets as this, like, like if our human DNA is this like double helix all wrapping around one thing, like what if like subnets are like, instead of just like a double helix, there's 100 subnets. So there's like 100 things that are all like spinning around this core of validators that, in synchronization, just validate everything happening.
It's a great analogy, and so let's talk about so atomic swaps means if I'm on my Krabata chain and I want to go across, it just goes across atomically, right? So immediately, so that state synchronizes. So I can synchronize my state across the Krabata subnet, and the P chain is smart enough to know what that state is. So then I can then move that state across. So if I've got $10, that's state. It's like, if I move that, or 10 TUS or 10 CRA, that state, then I can move across pretty much atomically at the real base layer. So that's different to Cosmos, which uses like a hub and spoke system. So Cosmos has like the hub, and then like all of the kind of, I don't even know what you call the Cosmos L1s, but like they have to then push their state to this like hub. And it's at that point that, things can get distributed. And that's why you see like RBC and stuff like that. My thing is, while we wait for atomic swaps, or if they indeed occur, we're going to bridge. It's just a natural market condition, right? So when Krabata goes live, if atomic swaps aren't ready, we're going to have to create a bridge. This is then going to create like a whole lot of design space elements for builders. So do you issue a completely new subnet token? Do you mint and burn? So like, this is something I've thought about a lot, is I think the most elegant design is cross-chain function calls. So what you would do is you would mint on that chain based upon demand, burn on the other chain based upon that. So then that way you kind of have a elastic dynamic supply, but I just don't think we're there yet. I think the only way that I think you can do that is either via Axelar or chain zero. Layer zero. So what that means is, let's say, for example, Krabata went subnet, and people were just like bridging. What they could actually rather do is they could just mint a certain amount in the morning. Let's say they minted like 10,000 tokens, and then as soon as those tokens were depleted, they could just have like a function call that then actually minted fresh tokens directly. And then it burnt their actual main Solidity contract. So I'll talk about it. So you'd have two Solidity contracts, one on the subnet, one on the C chain. So let's say it's your ERC20, but it would almost be like an ERC20 plus. Okay. So now your total supply will use like 10 million. It gets technical, but I think this is the answer. So you'd have like, let's say your supply is 10 million. And then what would happen is you would say, okay, cool, there's a lot of demand on the subnet. In that ERC20 Solidity contract, you would burn 10 million, and then you do a cross-chain function call to the ERC20 on the subnet, and you'd mint 2 million. So now your total supply is still 10 million, but you've got 2 million minted natively on the subnet, and you got 8 million that still resides on the C chain. And you can do it the other way. But basically what you'd have is you'd have a bot that would be calling these cross-chain function calls based upon supply and demand.
Right. Like at the protocol level, you could literally say, well, 1% of my supply wants to move over here. and then you kind of like move it into, like you freeze it in place and then mint it on the other side, or just like entirely burn it and then mint it on the other side. And then you can use it in that situation. The interesting thing I find myself thinking about here, I don't know if this is the right way to go about thinking about it, but it hasn't really even happened yet. So who knows what the right way to think about it is. I kind of picture right now all of the liquidities flying around on the C chain for Avalanche. The like way I picture it is like, all of the activities happening up here, and then like, it pops down to the C chain or the like, individual subnet when it's needed. So like, some of the like TUS token is needed and CRA is needed for paying out mining rewards or for buying a crab. Like you want to like move it over here into the subnet mode, and like maybe the liquidity is still flying around over here. But theoretically, you could have subnets that are just like the entire DEX functionality could be one subnet, and the entire lending borrowing functionality, like maybe there's a Pangolin subnet and there's a Benki subnet, and there's a maybe I'm just fundamentally thinking about it in a way that it'll happen a different one.
I think user experience is going to be key. You look at Polygon, like my missus, like she was trying to play DeFi Kingdoms the other day, and then like she didn't have a lot of money for gas. So I was like, oh, I think you can get it on not DeFi Kingdoms. Anyway, one of the games, Axie maybe it was. And I was like, oh, can't you play it on Polygon? And then she was like, she just couldn't figure it out. Like she gave up. So like, I think it's very important that
Axie is kind of an annoying one with that. I kind of loved that game for a while, but they were on Ethereum for a very long time. Obviously, gas fees became a little bit more prohibitive there, but they like made their entire own blockchain. So Axie should probably just make a subnet and not have to run their own blockchain anymore.
But so this is where the UX becomes. Imagine you're coming onto Avalanche. You've just installed MetaMask, and now you want to play Bravado, and then it's like, okay, well now you've got to manually load another network into MetaMask. You've got to switch there. You got to find ways to fund this new network. So you got to probably bridge it across before you even play the game. Like that's I think that's going to be very prohibitive to new people entering the space.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I kind of sometimes just like skip all the ways I know that like games work today. And I almost assume that like if I was going to make a game in like 2 years, like even if it's like so it's an NFT game, right? And like, it's like crypto Pokemon, like Axie or something like that. Like, would you like, let's just skip all the technical stuff and imagine how I'd hope it would happen. Like I would hope it can just be an app on my phone. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that might end up meaning that like you sort of need sort of a white labelable wallet infrastructure that you can just plug into a mobile app, and then you can make your game, and maybe it comes with a quick like tooling to spin up your own subnet when you're making a mobile app.
But like, I mean, and then you get in fragmentation, like we're finding wallet fragmentation.
Well, what if every single app ends up just being its own subnet? Is that too much? I used to think like it was too much to have like more than a few apps on my phone. Do you think it'll ultimately like change in a way such that like, it seems alarming right now that you'd have so many different networks and RPCs, but like maybe that ends up being simple and they're just like app IDs.
I mean, it's hard to predict. I think you'll have specialization in blockchains. So GameFi blockchains, you'll have kind of like, Wall Street blockchains, which aren't really used by the common people, as it were. Then you'll have like dystopian central blockchains, which will be used by governments to spy on us and to get our credit history and to do probably awful things to us. And then you'll get pirate blockchains. I think you're going to get some like crazy people that like are just like, like the Pirate Bay type blockchains where you can just pretty much go wild. And I think you're going to find that specialization occur. And the common user, retail, will probably flock towards the Facebook type blockchains because it's easy to use, and and then you'll find certain aspects of society, as we've seen in the internet, kind of hang out in the dark recesses of the internet, and they'll hang out in the darker corners of blockchain.
Something I learned about like in my like time in like the ad tech industry is, well, first before I even go there, I think like there's always like a pendulum, right? So like if if people feel like they're existing in like, you know, a world where they're like spied on too much, they're going to swing really far the other direction, maybe more towards this like super pirate, like, you know, ecosystem that you're referring to. But eventually things kind of like, you know, regress to the mean almost. And I think that like, you know, when you shine a flashlight, that like, you know, the robbers always run somewhere else, right? They don't disappear. So there's always going to be that kind of thing. But I think generally people will get more and more comfortable with these concepts, and they'll lean towards things that are like a reasonable amount of decentralized, like reasonably decentralized.
Yeah. I think it's true. I mean, I think what happens is people, like, you look at Facebook. Why did people sacrifice their privacy? Because, you know, the convenience of it was there. And I think what's going to happen is, why do people sacrifice their human rights for blockchains? It's going to be because the yields are there. So if I'm getting 20% and, you know, some other blockchain's only giving me 5%, most humans are going to be like, I don't care if they spy on me. I don't care, because I'm getting more money. And that kind of worries me, if I'm being perfectly honest, because blockchain has an immense capability for good, but it's also got an immense capability for some serious dystopian nightmares.
Wait, so that's actually kind of like a cool transition. So I think we covered like so many of the like necessary like concepts in the last like 30 minutes about like what crypto means to us, and some of like the infrastructure that we're the most curious to explore um, at the bleeding edge of like Avalanche. But I think it's almost an interesting opportunity to spin back into Dark Forest, because now you get like a game where, you know, someone's building a game and they're exploring all of these concepts all in one. It's privacy centric infrastructure. It's a subnet. They can, you know, make their own gas. They can play with literally every part of the ecosystem, every part of the blockchain. So, you know, this is like a crazy like text editor kind of like wow, I'm blanking on all my like favorite games I used to play growing up that were like this. But yeah, you like, you know, enter like A, B, C, or what is it, like, you know, A and I to like log in with existing accounts. Like you're so what happens first here, right? Basically, it's like you're going to create your private key, or it's going to let you import one to like essentially make a wallet right now.
Exactly. So if you look, so when they say a burner wallet account, it actually gets stored locally. So I think it gets stored like in local storage. So if you look like at your console, you know, you'll have like an actual browser keeps things locally, or you can persist it to like a centralized database. But what happens with Dark Forest is it's all locally, right? So if you clear your cache, like you're gonna, it's gone.
All
You
your
know.
planets, no more.
Yeah, exactly. So like all your progress is gone, right? So when it generates that burner wallet account, it creates it on WAGMI. I just want to make sure I'm on WAGMI. I think I'm on probably Avalanche. Let me just make sure I'm on WAGMI. It doesn't, like, for me, it doesn't matter because I've already got an account. Okay. So, but when you first come in here, you want to generate a new burner wallet, and you're going to have to transfer some WGM. I'm not sure how people are referring, but you're going to have to transfer WAGMI into that wallet. So when you, so this is a cool thing. Like basically what Patrick did and the team did is they did like they indexed the blockchain, and if you'd interacted with the C chain, they airdropped you 10 WAGMI. So as soon as you go to your MetaMask and you add the WAGMI network, if you've been interacting with the C chain, you got 10 WAGMI. Like I've got like so many wallets, so I've got like a heap on like all my wallets, which is great. So like if I run out of money, but what you're going to need to do is, once you create your wallet on Dark Forest, you're going to have to top that wallet up, right? So let's actually generate a new one, right? So okay, and it's giving me an address, right? Okay, so and yeah, you can see that they stored in local storage. Okay, so like if so if you clear, they're going to be gone, right? So the thing is, there's no economic value to WAGMI today. You know, it's on the Fuji, which I actually got confused about at one stage, but it is actually on Fuji. It's not on mainnet. So theoretically, there's no economic value. We may see economic value derive on WAGMI. I mean, economic value goes where users go and where people want to spend time, right? So I think if you do a bridge from WAGMI to the C chain, I do think you might actually get some form of economic value accruing. But for now, it's play money. It's the same as if you're playing on Fuji, right? So let's push in here, and you can see there's my wallet address, right? Okay. So what I'm going to do then is I need to transfer funds to that wallet address. Don't know why. Okay, cool. So if I look at that wallet address, I'm just going to transfer some funds to it. Okay. So I'll go into MetaMask, I'll go into my Wagme network, and I'll send, let me send 2 Wagme.
Booyah.
Okay, let me confirm that. Okay, cool. So I don't think there's not a block explorer for Wagme. Sorry, my son's just coming. Hey, buddy, that's very cool. But mommy's put in mode out. I know. Why don't you go watch TV, buddy?
He just wants to play Dark Forest.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's 6 a.m. So like the dude's just woken up and yeah. So
Dark Forest.
yeah, exactly. So I've just got the confirmation now. So it's sent through the money. So what I've got now is I've got 2 Wagme in that wallet. Okay. So I'm not sure if Avascan, I think they said they'd support Wagme, but I don't believe currently there's an explorer that supports it. We can have a look here. So it's a bit challenging. You know, you're not going to be able to go see your, let's have a look here. No, they don't support it. So like, you're not going to really be able to track your transactions if they get stuck or things are a bit confusing or, you know.
Tooling catches up with, it's like when it's a brand new ecosystem, there's a bunch of things that need to be solved.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's a playground for us, for devs and kind of builders, right? Like Wagme isn't intended to be for, normal retail, as it were. It's really just a playground for us, which is awesome. Okay, so what it's doing now is it's generating like this kind of like a generative universe, really, So again, like I just want to preface this, I'm useless at this. I try to read the wiki, but the wiki I didn't find held a lot of information. So, I think the Discord is a lot better if you want to find information there. So if you look here, so now welcome to Dark Forest, press enter to find a home planet. This may take up to 120 seconds and will consume a lot of CPU. So the reason why it will consume a lot of CPU is it's using all of those zero knowledge in the background. So it's generating a whole bunch of stuff. And then what it does is if you ever played like Warcraft or any of those games and you got the fog of war, even Civilizations has it, and then you can't see anything unless you send like a set.
Usually only see like 3 squares away from where you've already been. And then like it fogs over a little bit if you haven't been there recently.
Exactly. So let's talk about that concept. So if you think fog of war, the computer knows what's in that fog of war, but you, the user, don't. So when we look at zero knowledge, there's like a common analogy or a common thing they use to describe what zero knowledge is. So it's like, let's say you're outside Alibaba's cave. Okay, so now there's a cave, and like Justin and Steven's in that cave. And I'm probably going to butcher this, so I hope like Tyler or Anno is not watching this because I'll probably mess this up really badly. But let's say like Steven's at the entrance of this cave, okay, and he's looking in this cave. Now this cave is like a circle, right? So so you come in, you turn left, and then it goes in a circle, and then you get out back to where Steven is. But there's a door. There's a door in the middle of that with a lock. Okay, so like if Justin was in there, he wouldn't be able to like do the circle unless he had a key to that door, right? So you'd only ever be able to get to the door. If you didn't have the key, you'd have to come back. So you'd always come back from a certain direction. So now Steven wants to know, does Justin know the password for that door? And I don't want to tell him the password, but I want Steven to know that I know. I know the secret, but I don't want to tell you the secret. So what I do is I go.
You know that I know that you know.
Yeah. So it's zero knowledge, right? Hence the name, right? So Justin takes a walk. Let's say Justin takes 10 walks, and he doesn't know that password. He's always going to come out the same side. But if we randomize it and Justin knows the password, he's going to come out the other side, right? Because he knows the password. So the only way he could come out the other side is if he knew the password. So hence, Justin knows the secret, but I don't have to tell you the secret for you to understand I know the secret, because theoretically with enough simulations it would be impossible for me to come out that side without knowing the secret.
Wait, another analogy test, right? It's almost like let's assume we're playing chess against each other, but what if you now like don't actually know what pieces I have? Like chess is a game of like, it's not a game of imperfect knowledge. It's not like poker where you don't know what's in the person's hand, right? But now like let's pretend that like now you literally don't know where my pieces are. Like I moved, but like there needs to be some way of like deriving if like this game, like the game needs to somehow figure out what's going on, even though like you can't see what's there.
Yeah, so in Dark Forest, it's only the fog of war. I'm not sure what if the generation of the universe is using snarks. I mean, I haven't gone in like into deep
They have to like only apply zero knowledge to some parts of the ecosystem.
Yeah, and this is what like, so zero knowledge is cool, but like, so most of the use cases currently are on privacy. I mean, if you look at the what jumps out at you or what you'd use this for, it's privacy. But I think there's as it matures, there'll be other use cases that pop up besides privacy. I mean, this is something like I love Pangolin, but I certainly miss Sherpa and being able to do deep dives in this type of technology. But there's just so much cool stuff in the space. It's hard to like be able to focus on all of it. Okay, so I'm going to find a home planet. So now it's just doing a hash. So this will take a fair bit of time. And then what
do you think about this just in the game, by the way, the finding a home planet? There's like, 10,000 planets out there or something like that. And like you have to find one that no one's already like living on. I like picture like, planet with a little person on it. Right? Yeah.
Also, I think it's generating a unique planet or a unique universe per user. I'm not sure if I'm correct in this, but I think in a future version that you'll be able to play with other players in that same universe. I'm not sure if that is the case currently. I've only played this a few times, like kind of like, especially with like the week we've had. So you won't be able to see a pop-up, but basically what's happened is there'll be a pop-up here asking me to approve. I don't want to share. Yeah, let me just share my whole screen.
It's okay, there was a pop-up that happened, and what did
it just asked me to approve. So I'm actually submitting a transaction to the blockchain now.
So it was an approval request. Okay.
Exactly. So actually, every time you do anything, there's a transaction. So because you're recording something to the blockchain, right?
But these can be totally free transactions or whatever. Like as long as the like subnet has its own way of paying validators at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing. I don't have that wallet, and I don't have an Explorer, so I can't tell you exactly how much it cost.
We're gonna skip it. It costs some of the WAGMI token.
It's pretty cheap. I mean, I played for like a few hours a while ago, and yeah, and I love the look of this. I mean, I know it's like not to everyone's taste, but I think they've done a really cool job of like, I guess that retro, it evokes some cool memories.
Super cool.
Yeah. So you look, there's my burner wallet address. So normally what I'll do is I store, I mean, this is WAGMI, I don't really care too much, but like if this was a mainnet, I'd be keeping that somewhere safe. Okay. Require back. I think I've already enabled pop-ups. Yeah, I have. So I understand. I'm all good. Okay. So it stores my private key in the cache, which we talked about. And the private key and your home coordinates are your thing. So, I mean, so you can see I'm not very private here, right? So let's take a little segue here. So anyone watching this could actually hack my Dark Forest, right? Because I'm recording this and we're streaming this pretty much to the world. If this was on a mainnet and I was watching this, I could literally write down that private key and those home coordinates, and I could hack Justin's Dark Forest implementation, and I could go and screw with all my planets and mess me around. But again, because it's a test net, I mean, it's not as big a deal. But if anyone wants to do that, yeah, I mean,
it'd be pretty funny for the live stream if all of a sudden it glitches out and like your planet disappears or something.
I think it'd be kind of awesome. Like if someone was watching and they just kind of started hacking me, like I think it's like ultimate troll, like. Okay, cool. So proceed. Okay, so we got rules and stuff. I find there's a cool tutorial, but it didn't really explain to me the things like as I delved deeper into the game that I needed to know. So like over here in the top left, you'll see there's a tutorial. So we go, yeah, let's play it. And then you got 50 energy. Okay, so basically everything works on energy in this game. So if I look over here, you can see I can click on it. It's a grassland planet. It generates like a random name. There's my energy. So I've got 100 energy. I've got silver. So basically, you want to mine silver.
They just like program in like every like planet is essentially going to be like a huge random number, and it's going to like essentially have some energy, some gold, some silver, different resources. So you can start to build your planets and explore,
upgrade. You can broadcast. So I think it is actually like live, because if you broadcast and if it was only me in this universe, that would be pointless. So I actually do think this universe is part of a universe that other players are on. And then you got energy growth, you got silver growth, and then defenses. So this is like the defenses I haven't quite figured out. Like when I send energy to other planets, like big planets, I found a few big ones and I couldn't take them over, and I wasn't sure exactly what I was doing wrong. And then you got like speed, so how quick your energy travels across the universe, and then range, right? So like obviously energy decays. But like now what we can do is we can zoom out and look for other planets. So if I'm zooming out here, I can see there's a planet there. And there's a few there, right? So like now I can send energy to that planet.
No one has moons. Yeah, you see that thing orbiting it?
It's sick, yeah. Like when I found my first asteroid belt, I was pretty stoked. Like, so we click on this and we just send energy and we just click it on there, right? Now I don't know what this like 64 minus 4 means, like underneath the planet. Like I haven't figured that out. Like, does that mean like I lose energy? But then if I do that
one, another one, that one says plus though, doesn't it? Now,
yeah.
That way, so.
Oh, and something interesting you'll see is check at that little guy there. That is actually opening fog of war. So that's what's using the snarks. So that dude is pretty much running around showing me the visible universe. But as he shows me the visible universe, he's using the snarks to actually interpret what's behind the fog of war.
And that's like you, like as if like your like planet is like constantly exploring the skies and researching what's nearby, right?
Exactly. Sorry, I got another visitor here. Buddy.
I got my motor car.
You've got lovely motor cars. Why don't you go show mommy, buddy? Sorry. Okay, so let's send some energy. So we can also like have a look over here, and this one actually has silver. So it's an asteroid field, which is quite rare. So if we want to, come, buddy, come. Okay, sorry. Actually,
asteroid
blueberries or cherries. Yeah. So let's try send energy there. Where am I? Okay, cool. So we send. You can also choose how much energy. So I haven't really
think energy differently than like sending like some troops or boats in like a different like civilization style game. Like how does energy just like work in the game?
Like, see, this is the thing. I haven't really figured this out too much. Like again, like please enable pop-ups. Oh, so that's the thing. I don't have pop-ups.
By the way, as like a little sidebar, this is like a bunch of Pangolin people playing games on blockchain. So I don't know if you can catch the gist here, but we're all about supporting GameFi projects and people that are exploring the way that you can use blockchain to make games, and that's what we're all about.
Yeah, nice. So I'm sending energy to this planet. I've gotten a little pop-up which then approves it. So I'm paying 1.5 Gwei, which is like, how much does that cost? 0.003. So super cheap. What this then does is it starts sending energy.
I love that, like lerping across it, like slowly moving across the line.
Okay, so now they talk about that. So now they're talking about that guy. So I'm just going to say, yeah, see that. Try moving by clicking on the move button. You can move your Explorer when nothing is selected. Bottom left, yeah, there. Okay, and you can pause that dude. So there, I've paused him. Yo, this is actually very cool. There's a space-time rip in there. I've actually never seen a space-time rip. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
How did they program all this stuff? They threw a black hole in, so they just like teleport to different parts of the universe, probably.
I think so. So I think, like, if I've read it correctly, I think you get the silver and then you send the silver through the rips, and then you accumulate the most silver. But like when I was reading the wiki, it was like, oh, it's not actually even about winning. You know, some people will play the game a specific way. There's actually like an NFT marketplace. So some people are using it for NFTs. Like there's like some people, like a lot of people don't care about the money aspect of it, whereas other people do. So it's like they kind of just presented this and they said, well, use it however you will, which I think is pretty amazing.
Wow.
And then we've got a terminal over here, which is really just, so this is quite cool. You can actually, I'm not sure, but basically this is like a JavaScript terminal. So, you know, you could be like df account and it'll tell me the account. I don't actually, so Dark Forest would be like,
so instead of having snow trace, you can, if you like have a little bit of dev chops, or it's almost like saying like, you know, what's 4 plus 4, not 4 plus 4, you know, so you can sort of query that way at least.
That's it. So this is just, it's an object. And then you'd be able to have function calls within that object. So if you knew the function calls, you know, and you're like a bit proficient, you could just kind of run yourself like through the sidebar. Or if you don't care about that, you could hide it, right? Okay, have the highest score at the end of the round to win. So you can increase your score by withdrawing silver via space-time rips, which we've got over there, right? So if you look, I own that planet and I own that planet. So as soon as I take over a planet, you can see like the energy starts accumulating. So like when I took it over, I think it was like 20 or whatever, but now it's starting, you can see it's starting to go up there. Space-time rip, and then you got like a planet, and then asteroid field has like a lot of silver. So if you look there, there's silver. Most of these planets don't have silver though. Like if you look there, there's no silver on the planet. And then there's no silver on this planet. Okay. So, yeah, I don't even know what Valhalla is. I'll try to Google what Valhalla is, but I don't know.
I think something like this could like just end up like, is it possible that, you know, one marketplace is, how could like all of DeFi like apps just end up being like all in WAGMI? I feel like there's a weird possibility that like we could make certain pools, like Pangolin pools, that are like only in WAGMI or something like that. So you have to go to a certain planet to be there and to actually trade something like that.
I mean, I guess it opens up a design space. Is like, do you want specialized subnets? Like, so like, yeah, like for me, what I would think would be awesome is if like WAGMI or other subnets developed into these kind of like simulate, like, you know, the way I see it is like, you know, like machine learning subnets, so you could predict things like black swan events, for example. Like, you know, how do we predict if things will lose pegs when bridges go down? How do we simulate things on a blockchain? You know, something that like Chaos Labs is doing incredibly well, and Gauntlet. But the problem I find, well, I think what we're going to see is we're going to find a proliferation of subnets, and most of them are going to have very little thought into their value accrual. It's just going to be like, we have a subnet, and it's going to be some like marketing thing on Twitter, like, oh yeah, look at us, we got a subnet, and like there's no real point to it. Like for me, there's a few things.
Hey, that would be enough for me to ape in.
But yeah. But like the thing is, it's like, you first of all, you want economic value, right? So like the thing is, like for me, the main thing that people should think about when creating a subnet is what's the economic value, because you're trying to bring validators into your subnet. So what's the point?
You need to give people a reason to process your transactions, like I guess is what that really means, right? So like if there's there's potential for there to be a bajillion subnets. People still have to spend energy, like, like processing transactions and securing your network. So you do need some sort of economic incentive long-term for these things. Right now, I bet some of those validators might do it just because there's a small set of subnets. It's not super, they don't have to be super selective yet.
No, but it is expensive running a validator, right? Because you can't, with your all nodes, like let's say, like so Sherpa, we had one with all nodes, but you can't then be a validator on subnets with all nodes. So the thing is, then you've got to spin your own up. So if you're spinning your own up, you've got to spin up like AWS. You got to like secure it with security. You've got to then boost it behind like a load balancer and like an elastic, elastic load balancers. So there's like a significant cost to that. So, I mean, as a validator, the more subnets you're doing, the more that cost goes up. So it doesn't make economic sense if they're not getting rewarded for that work. So validators are intrinsic to our ecosystem. So we have to provide economic reasons for them to engage with our subnets. So I think the first thing you design when you look at a subnet is, how do we make these validators money? Like, these dudes are like, and that's the thing with validators. You often don't see them. They're not as vocal or public figures. That's why I quite dig the validator community. They're kind of like, but we got to make these guys rich, basically, right? You make these dudes rich and they're going to validate your subnet. The more validators you have, the more decentralized you have, the more kind of like, theoretically, the harder it is to take that subnet down, the longer it lasts, but if you go back to first principles, you got to make these dudes money. And woman.
Yeah, otherwise it's never gonna be able to operate. You could technically like operate one of these like on C chain too. Maybe, I don't know. This game is doing quite a lot, so it'd probably be pretty expensive just to run.
So let me try. This will be actually the first time. So again, -4. I don't know what those numbers mean. I'd need to go onto their Discord and find out. But now I've got an asteroid belt field, which is generating silver, which is awesome. Okay, so like I'm generating silver. I went down because now I'm sending that silver to this space-time rip. So when I send that silver, then I get points because I'm kind of like cashing out my silver. And then like, you can go pretty wild, yeah, and just like, so when you've got like 100 or a figure under these planets that's not red, that means you own it. So you can see I own that. I own the silver mine, I own that. And then you can really start kind of like taking over, right? So if I wanted to do this guy, I can send energy there. And you just have like all of these transactions going. Oh, also I need to, I turned off the explore. So let me just explore. Now that guy is carrying on exploring the universe. Because what you want...
What do you think the concentric circles mean? There's now a few concentric circles that were growing before. Do you have any guess or hypothesis there?
I think it's to do with the energy decay. I think it measures the decay of the energy based upon like your ownership, or I believe it's an energy decay. How that relates to the game, I'm still figuring out. But like also like you get different space. So you get like dark space. I think you get like, I don't know how many different types there are, but like as you start exploring, you'll see there's different types of space. And the resources will be different based upon the space you're in.
Wow.
But
there's so much going on too. And like, so all of this like state data, like the universe, the galaxy, this is all like shared theory. Let's assume it's shared, right? Like you were wondering if it's multiplayer or not, right? Let's pretend it's multiplayer. Like in order for it to be multiplayer and for that to be happening, like let's spend a few minutes just talking about what that means. Because this is like essentially like a real-time strategy game, like a massively online multiplayer. But instead of it being on like RuneScape's server, it's like this is on chain right now, and like, with like provable like privacy and like secrecy, like so your galaxy or your little empires could be like treading under the radar of other galaxies and stuff like that. You have like different energy moving around. Definitely reminds me of like sending some battleships from one island to drop off some settlers or warriors or whatever it is, and settle new civilizations, new planets.
And like it's all open source, right? So like, if I wanted to build a mod, like I think if you had to think about plugins and modding, like you could easily see a secondary market coming up for mods, right? So let's say I build a mod that allows spaceships, I don't know, or colonization of certain planets. Well, then theoretically people could build, I think they do have a plugin system. Yeah. So if you
built a plugin system already for it. Wow. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So then the thing is, if you think there's a secondary market, you could go to Pangolin and you could purchase like an NFT of the plugin and then install the plugin. Like the use cases are pretty damn cool.
Wow.
Click 8 times for, I've never done this.
Really? Click 8 times for plugin? I love that. You can tell people just had a ton of fun making this, and that's sometimes one of the best products. They're made that way.
Yeah. And yeah, you can see there's all of my like transactions. Like as I explore the universe, you'll get like sometimes you'll find pirate planets. I found a few pirate planets. I couldn't take them over. Like I kept sending energy and like I could just never. So there's still quite a bit I'm figuring out. And I just, with this week and the new UI launch, I just haven't had a lot of time for games, to be honest.
Makes sense. We have limit orders now, so yeah.
Cool. Like, should we wrap it up? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was like a pretty cool, exploration today. We, I guess closing thoughts. One of my friends made this quote. If you're watching, you know who you are. But we live in this crazy time. We were too late to explore the planet, but maybe too early to explore the actual galaxy. But here we are exploring, the forefronts of technology. So doing it with Pangolin. Welcome to Degen Hour.
Awesome. Yeah. Again, we'll close off, not financial advice, education, no purposes. Yeah. And looking forward to next week.
What do the guys from Bankless say? We're going west. It's not for everyone. Something else. It sounded good for the first half. All right. Well, Thank you so much for the time and everyone for joining. Thank you, Justin. And you'll see us again next week.
Yeah. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Yeah.